Pivot. There we go. We're live on the air, folks. Thank you for joining us. I am going to give you the proper welcome in 1 second. Sorry about the delay. We had some technical difficulties, so we also have a changed guest list. God, it's such an adventure. And Jaime, is that you with the dogs there?
Yep, that's me.
All right. If you want to go ahead and mute if you need to on the Hangout. I know it won't translate to the recording, but
there are 7 dogs around me, by the way.
Awesome. Awesome.
Sounds like fun.
Right. Well, it doesn't sound like this situation is ever going to get any better. So, what say we begin, gentlemen? Sound good?
Yes.
Sweet.
Sounds good.
I feel out of uniform without my very authentic glasses, so I'm going to put them on, and now we can go. Whew. This is going to be a lot of fun. All right, here we go, guys. Double check that the individual audio tracks are recording, please, and give me a final confirmation on that.
Yes, they are.
Jaime?
We're good.
All right, sweet. Thank you. I needed an audio because I'm obscured by the script. Here we go, folks. Pocket Now Weekly, half hour late. Yes. 3, 2. If you're looking for the internet's leading source of football, World Cup, soccer, kicking, vuvuzela, sports ball nonsense, you're in the wrong place. In addition to being the only corner of the internet not screaming about an athletic event, this show is about technology. And whether you like computers on your wrist, cardboard smartphones on your face, or a little more dimension in your software, this week's Google I/O keynote had something for you, and we're here to talk about it on episode 102 of the Pocket Now Weekly, the once-a-week podcast from Pocket Now where we discuss news and opinion from the worlds of smartphones, tablets, and wearables, you know, other gadgets you wished you owned when you were a kid. From Boston, Massachusetts, I'm your host, Michael Fisher, editorial director at Pocket Now and world's biggest smartwatch fanboy. And joining me on the air are one guest host and one from Pocket Now. Now, we were originally going to have Daniel Bader from MobileSyrup. Unfortunately, he's still on the ground at Google I/O, and the internet just doesn't work there, as you may know. So we lined up some additional outside perspective on today's podcast in the form of, from Greater Boston as well, on a very special day that only comes once a year, Enobong Etteh, a.k.a. Thunder E. Welcome to the Weekly, man.
Hey, thank you very much. How's everyone going? Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And a happy birthday to you, sir. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second because you've got some chocolates to share. But coming to the rescue, and we have to give him thanks for this, on about 3 minutes' notice, multimedia manager Jaime Rivera from Honduras. Jaime, thank you for saving the Weekly this week.
I'm always up for it. Thank you for having me. How's everything? and obviously, everyone knows I'm using this shirt for a reason. I'm just trying to make him happy.
You know, I was
trying to make him smile.
I had such high hopes that Daniel Bader was going to be on because I don't know if he's a football fan or not, but I've been having I'm such a curmudgeon. I'm expecting attendance to be a little low at the show because of the. Is the football game over today? Does either of you know what's going on?
Well, the first game is over. The first set of games are over.
Yeah, it just finished, and the USA just qualified to how do you call that? The second round, exactly. Sadly, my country didn't make it, but USA did qualify.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Jaime. Congratulations to anybody who favors that outcome. I don't even know how to talk in this matter. I obviously don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to football. So I just wanted to give you guys the opportunity to get it out of your systems before.
That's going to be very hard, though.
Yeah, I know. Well, one of us is in uniform. Jaime, I love when you wear. Is that the Barcelona shirt?
Yes, I'm muting. Sorry for the dogs, and yes, this is the last year's Barcelona shirt.
That's okay. That's all right. Well, speaking of the dogs and speaking of audio, I want to tell everyone before we actually get in here, we are continuing with our sort of Google Hangouts experiment. It was principally the reason for the massive delay today. I have to be honest with you, I can't stand it. But because of its crappy audio quality, we are recording our own audio tracks individually today. So we're going to layer them together, composite them after the show, and hopefully assemble a podcast that sounds much better than the one that you're seeing right now. But if you're watching live, we're here so that you can watch live and so that we can take your Q&A. I believe we've enabled that. Jaime, if you could double check that for me, that would be awesome. And so we're still trying to get the best of both worlds. So we appreciate your patience on that. And special guest Enobong Etteh from BooredatWork.com, I appreciate your patience as we hammer out our technical difficulties.
Not a problem. Since it's birthday, I am slowly celebrating. And take it easy. That's all.
Come on, man. Look at what I'm drinking. Water. How dare I? Hold
Oh
on.
no, it's okay.
Got
It's
some
okay.
beer in the fridge. I need to
okay.
celebrate with you. Sorry, hold on. I'll be back.
I'm drinking world's favorite seltzer, Polar Seltzer, straight from Boston. Not a podcast sponsor yet, but lovely stuff. I wish I was drinking your beer, Etteh.
Well, I would definitely try and send some to you guys. At least I can join you for drinks pretty soon.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you're like down the road, which is great. We're getting a little wire rub, I think, from you there, Etteh.
Sorry.
I think so. I don't know, unless it's Jaime. So anyway, I want to get to these announcements so we can talk about Google I/O because that's been the big news of the week. And before we clear off into the thought thread to start to talk about that, I have a very happy bit of news for one listener out there. You guys remember that we announced a giveaway last week. It is a giveaway centered around the Huawei AscendMate 2 4G LTE, the longest lasting smartphone I've ever handled, and yeah, with of course the longest name that anyone's ever heard of. But
I debate that. Samsung does a really good job.
Sprint, Samsung, Epic 4G LTE.
4G LTE touch.
That one.
Touch.
That one.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Well, it's all right. So that's all right. This one is shorter from Huawei, so we can at least be assured that we are in fact moving forward. I have a piece of good news. We're actually giving away 2 of these. The next one is coming much later in July. We're giving away smartphones all month in July. Folks, you will hear about it on Pocket Now. I think starting July 2nd is when we're making the announcement on that. So this is one of 2 Huawei AscendMate 2 4G LTEs that we're giving away. And we asked you to enter last week on the podcast. And I'm not going to be too much of a curmudgeon here, I swear, but I just want to say, for the future, when you're entering contest giveaways, it is very helpful to read the rules, because while my favorite thing to do is to give away smartphones, my least favorite thing to do is to disqualify people based on failing to follow the instructions, which were very simple. All you had to do was follow us on Facebook, and by the way, if you don't use Facebook, that's totally fine. We're sorry about that. That will not be a requirement for all the giveaways going forward. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was people left a comment. That was the other part of the thing. Leave a comment on the post. But it had to be a comment with feedback about Pocket Now, whether it's what you want to see from the future, whether it's good or bad, stuff you're tired of seeing, whatever. And I disqualified 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people who could have been winners, like the Rafflecopter widget used random.org to pick a winner each time. 8 people could have been winners, and they didn't because they didn't follow that simple instruction. And then another thing was that this was a U.S. giveaway only, so we had to disqualify a couple of people on that. So it's like, guys, follow the instructions, please. Guys, I feel like, Etteh, you and I have had words about this before.
Look, I'm going to put it from my point of view. It's YouTube. You have to almost enunciate and specify quite a few times before for people follow. But that's just the name of the game, I'd say.
Yeah, I do not think you're wrong on that. Well, enough of that sadness. It looks like it looks like my physical presence has disappeared. How long has that been happening?
Roughly around 3 seconds, but you're in a good pose, so it's not bad.
Well, actually, and just I'm sure that other people are sensing this, but actually, both your connections are going away and back.
Really?
So it could be. It is a Hangouts issue.
It is. It's not my connection.
Well,
because I'm paying for it.
So am I. Well, the best part about this is that ideally the listeners who are listening to the show won't get this. And listeners, we are going to focus on speaking into your ears this time and not doing as much stuff that requires you to watch. But in the meantime, we teased it, and now we're just going to say it. Give me a drum roll, please, podcast operator. Hey, that worked. That's cool. The winner of our Huawei AscendMate 2 4G LTE this week is Joshua Robert Cooper, who followed Huawei Device USA on Twitter, is a fan of ours on Facebook, and also left us a comment with regard to how we can improve the show. Joshua, congratulations. What was the comment, I wonder? I am hunting for it in the tabs, and I believe I have found something about it. We're going to get this out to you very quickly. This is actually coming from Huawei, who is our partner on the giveaway. Would either of you guys, while I'm looking at this comment, would either of you guys like to win one of those devices? Have you had some hands-on time with it, Enobong?
No, I haven't. I haven't had the opportunity to. That would be fun and great, but I don't want to deprive your viewers of a device.
A giveaway device. No, I
yes. And that would be selfish of me, actually, more than anything else.
I think Joe Levi still has our review unit. I think he's doing a couple pieces on it. But after that, Jaime, we got to see if we can get it to you because it's so cool to use a phone that just doesn't die for like 4 days.
Interesting.
Joshua's feedback was, I want to see more of Android Power User. Being a computer science graduate, it's always nice to catch up on the basics and make sure that nothing has changed. Because as anyone in the computer field knows, it does all too often. That's awesome feedback. We will do the very best we can to get you more Android Power User because I like that series too. So, new giveaway will be announced Monday at the kickoff of our month of giveaways on Pocket Now. But for now, Joshua, one more time, congratulations from all of us and from Huawei.
Congratulations, Joshua.
Huzzah! The only other announcement I have, guys, is, and I don't think either of you knew this was coming, and frankly, I don't know if either of you will care, but I care because I think this is we're one of the first outlets to have an opportunity to review a Xiaomi device. Now, am I mispronouncing that horribly?
Xiaomi? I've never heard of a Xiaomi device.
I thought it was Xiaomi.
Yeah, some people, it's spelled like Xiaomi with the X. It's the
okay.
It's the company Hugo Barra went to work for. Or,
yeah,
as you would say, Hugo Barra.
You nailed it.
I'm like Matias Duarte. Come on, just say it right. Or Hugo Barra. It's like, come on.
But it's Hugo Barra. Yes, he went to
Hugo Barra. Come on.
So I'm sure we're saying it wrong on the Xiaomi part too. But you know what? Hey, that's all right. I want to say now. Unfortunately, my camera is not functioning, so I can't show it to you, which is the entire point of being online and being doing the podcast this way, but it is essentially the Xiaomi answer to the Moto G. And before I forget, I want to say that this came to us from Clifton Thomas, who very generously let us borrow this one. Clifton M. Thomas on Twitter. So we're going to be reviewing a Xiaomi device. I think that's awesome. I've never really handled one. Have you gone hands-on with them at all, either Jaime or Etteh, on your things?
No, I've never actually heard of it. This is my first time of hearing
wow.
Xiaomi. So.
Oh, sweet. Well, we're bringing news to at least one citizen. That is a good thing. I'm going to find. There we go. All right, we're back on here. So I wanted to let everybody know to expect that in the future. Thank you, Clifton Thomas, for the device loan. And what say, guys, we jump into the thought thread?
Okay.
I want to say that, Etteh, I'm sorry that you are sick, by the way. And viewers, join me in sending get well wishes to Enobong on his birthday.
Thank you very much. Beer and alcohol would be most preferable.
Yeah, I've solved many a sore throat with Samuel Adams' Boston Lager. Let me tell you.
You'd be amazed at what Advil with a little beer would do.
Yeah,
isn't that dangerous?
They say it is. Hey, look, I was a clinical microbiologist, and I can tell you from extensive study that only at very high levels it is dangerous. At the rate I'm taking, I'm fine. It's just more beer, less pills. That's all.
You have no idea what levels of beer we drink here.
Well, all right. Let's jump into technology and see if we can resurrect this thing here. We have a thought thread from Shane Udelman, and that's the best I can do on that name. I think I got reasonably close, which deals directly with some of the things we saw at Google I/O this week, and that's pretty damn exciting considering it's my favorite part of the whole thing. Shane writes, "Hi guys, I was looking at the Android Wear page on Google Play, and I noticed that it said that the Gear Live and LG G Watch were compatible with Android 4.3 and above. The Moto 360 would be my first choice, but it's unclear whether it will work with my S5. So, do you think it's worth it to wait to see if the Moto 360 will be compatible, or just go with the Gear Live or G Watch? Thanks, Shane."
In his case in particular, that's interesting, as we know the limitations that the Pebble has with Galaxy phones. So we don't know, really. It's really a Samsung thing and not really a smartwatch thing. So who knows? That's a good question.
I mean, I don't anticipate real trouble with compatibility. I mean, even though Samsung has proven not to work terribly well with things like the Pebble, I mean, this is Google's new, a platform they care about very much, and I would be stunned if it was not, completely directly compatible with one of the best-selling Android devices of all time. So I don't think it's a compatibility thing. The interesting part of this question to me was, should I jump on one of these two devices first or wait for the Moto 360? And I think the core of my answer is certainly, man, I'd wait to see what the 360 is going to be priced at least, because that thing looks pretty amazing.
I was about to pull the trigger on the Gear Live, and then I was like, nah, I'll wait for the 360. I mean, what's the point?
And we're actually going to talk a little bit about the G Watch and the versus the Gear Live later in the show. But
yeah.
What are your thoughts, Enobong?
I think you should wait for the Moto 360. I'm unlike you. I'm completely washed out on wearables, but because of its clock-face device, I'm a watch guy. Like, I have 15 wristwatches, but wearables to me just don't necessarily do it anymore. But in terms of aesthetics, first of all, the 360 has won me there. I will buy one just for the look, not actually for the wearables, just for the look. And I think it'll be compatible too. I think you're right. That is a device that that really is going to set the bar for Android Wear. So I think Google is going to make sure that it works on every Android device at a certain level, whether it's 4.4 or 4.3 or whatever the case may be.
Now tell me something, Enobong. How much would you pay for the 360? Like, how much would be like the top price that you would pay for that thing?
For me, 250, 300 will be the price for the 360. I say 300 is probably because it's not as a watch guy, it's not a brand name that I would spend a lot of money to buy. But it's got the aesthetics and that futurism in there that I can say, okay, a 300 price range, I can deal with 400 or 399. That it's got to like make rice for me or something with it.
It's got to make rice for you.
so that's my thinking there. But I would say for me $300.
All right, so let's jump into the news of the week, because I want to sort of wrap up this whole Google I/O thing in sort of a bundle. And I will say, just a technical note, Jaime, I think it's your collar mic is rubbing against your shirt, so just watch that. It was just what happened yesterday.
Yeah, this is actually another microphone. That's odd, but okay.
Oh, okay. Now we've got we usually have Steven to run down the news for us, but let's jump into news. And let's talk about exactly what happened at Google I/O. We got Android One. Google announced a new development platform to produce Android handsets, especially aimed at developing markets. Google was showcasing, I think it was a Micromax-produced phone that was just going to be absurdly cheap compared to the specs that were included in it. We also had, obviously, the Android-L announcement, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, from this coming fall release of Android-L. We still don't know if that is a code name or if that is the go-to-market name, unless I've missed something today in my preparation for the show. We got a new look in Chrome as it embraces material design, another change that is going to be most visible in Android-L. And geez, speaking of Chrome, there were Chromecast changes as well. I don't have a Chromecast, so this wasn't really high on my list. It loses the requirement for the device in your phone to be running on the same Wi-Fi network, so you can connect directly over Wi-Fi with it, which is going to be much more convenient. Don't have to give people your Wi-Fi credentials. There's a health platform called Google Fit. There's an update to Google Play services. And there's a ridiculous cardboard thing, which we'll also talk about in a second.
Don't forget Android TV.
And Android TV, thank you.
Android TV, Android Auto, my God, it was just...
And Android Auto, yes. Yeah.
I have to say that I'm very thankful that we only cover mobile because when the Android Auto and Android TV came on, I had a moment to kind of go back and rejigger the Android Wear stuff in my head so that I could put that out on a post. But this is a whole lot of stuff, guys. I mean, I was watching it from Google I/O Extended here in Cambridge. You guys were probably both following it from somewhere. Enobong, where were you?
I was watching Nigeria play yesterday, so I actually did watch it.
I can't get away from it. It's everywhere.
I had the game on mute, dude. We were like doing the full editorial roundtable, and I just had the game on mute.
You guys are
But I did go back and catch up. Mind you, I could watch it on my PC while watching Aya at the same time. But I mean, this is very tense moments, and I didn't want to be breaking stuff around my PC and my desk.
I understand. Well, all right. So we all watched it in some form at varying levels of attentiveness, I can see. But the first thing that I sort of want to jump into here is I actually forgot because now I can't go back on my machine here. But what is the next thing on the rundown? Are we talking Android L first?
Yeah, I think we should talk Android L. Why not?
This is like the yeah, that sounds good. Why don't you take us through the arrangement there? There we go. No, it's not, Jaime. You just said yes because you you just decided that yes would be the answer.
All right, fine. Take over.
No, I do want to talk about Android L in a second, but Wear is what gets me very excited compared to the rest of this because it is a new category. Although I saw an interesting tweet today from someone who was saying that smartwatches are the new netbooks. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that we are, in fact, engrossed in just whatever the latest fad is that's going to evaporate in 2 years, or do you think this trend is here to stay?
Not netbooks.
Well, I mean, it's not a bad analogy if they do indeed fizzle in 2 years and nobody's asking for a watch.
Yes, I don't. Yes, but netbooks is it was a different category. Like, Microsoft wanted to push a computer for everybody, and the only way they could reach it was through the netbook. A very affordable, underpowered computer that would solve the technology needs of entry-level people or countries. The smartwatch is nothing of the sort. It's still something that's optional. You don't need a smartwatch. It's just an accessory where you could rather decide to enhance your experience or not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a netbook. I think what you're looking at here is a device that companies are trying to extend that mobile market, and they've been trying to force it down in some form or fashion. I mean, Samsung has done the biggest job in throwing things at it to try and make it stick, and it's I would say it's comparable to the netbook. To me, the netbook is literally the tablet extension. The tablet is the netbook because Qualcomm processors came and saved that whole market altogether.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing. I mean, all of the demand that we're seeing, or all of the buzz we're seeing about smartwatches is coming from the tech space, whether it's tech publications, whether it's the people that actually make the things. The buzz is not really translating to the rest of the world, from what I can see. I mean, people are still curious about what my Pebble is, and they're like, yeah, I guess that's cool, but there's not the burning need for it in every sector of the world. So I'm just curious about this, and this sort of segues into my hands-on time with the G Watch yesterday, which I wanted to talk to Daniel a bit because he got some hands-on time with the Moto 360 and I did not. But it was the G Watch was kind of underwhelming for me on the floor there at I/O Extended. Like, we always knew that it was kind of the form factor was less impressive. It was a square or whatever. It was sort of thin and plastic and light. But we're hearing that a battery life is only going to be like a day on this first wave of devices.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Marquez was saying 36 hours.
Yeah, there was I was speaking to someone who was saying about a longer than a day, and you don't need to charge it right at the end of the day, but I'll put it this way, it wasn't like they were saying you can get 2 days out of it. I mean, that's pretty rough considering when the Galaxy Gear first gen launched, it got a lot of bunk for being like a 2.5-day device.
Right, yeah.
And now that the later generation Gears with Tizen have some optimization, they can last up to almost a week, and the Pebble can last, a very long time. That's going to be a real tough hurdle to clear, especially at the prices that these guys are asking at $229 and $199 for the Samsung device. But I don't know. I think that those are the complications, whether there's any real demand and what the endurance is going to be. But the features look pretty amazing. I mean, Jaime, you were getting pretty jazzed about this yesterday on that roundtable.
Well, the thing is, I really like Google Now. Like, for me, it's probably one of the coolest things that I've ever seen come to mobile. The fact that the phone starts learning the things that are important to me, and that's the only reason why, even though I mostly use an iPhone, I always carry an Android phone. And for me, it's just that. How convenient is it for me to not have to search for Google Now every time that I pull out my phone, for it to just be available to me all the time in my wrist? For me, that's just the smart way to approach a smartwatch. That's my impression. That's the reason why I was so hyped. Not really because of the models. For me, it was, I even told you, the low-resolution display on that G Watch just looked terrible on video. But then when they shifted to the Moto 360, I was like, oh my God, Take my money. Take my money. Oh my God.
No, I agree. But let's talk about the platform though, because this is pretty cool. You know, we've always known that there was going to be heavy Google Now integration on the device, but you can do an awful lot with a fairly simple interface. It's a vertically scrolling array of cards. You tap on the face of the phone and you just flick up through you know, the usual call and alert stuff, the notifications for messages and whatever, but also everything you normally see in Google Now on an Android device, like nearby public transit, like upcoming events, useful information that's time sensitive. And then if you want to see something in a little more detail, you swipe left or right, and it's a very simple UI. Although I did see a couple of people struggling with it on the floor. I think it's going to take a little bit of tweaking. Did you have any thoughts on the functionality, Enobong?
I like the fact that they went with the Google Now approach for Android Wear, because to me that was what I thought it was going to be the most sensible thing, especially the location awareness and things like that, where instead of you pulling out your smartphone, you get that notification to say, hey, you need to catch that train now, or else you will be 20 minutes later, or whatever the case may be. So those kind of things I think really work well with it, where it feeds the important information, and as Google continues to improve that Google Now feature as it feeds it through Android Wear, I think that would make it more of a device where people now go, okay, yeah, it makes sense for me to now have a smartwatch, because then my phone is now focused on doing the entertainment things that I like, when I was just watching video, playing games on there, and then I now know that my meetings are there, my appointments, everything I need in terms of just up-to-date information, it's fitting it to me, and I can deal with that. So on that aspect, I did like what they brought up, but in terms of the interface, I think it's okay, it's fine, especially for first generation. I wanted to see it be a little bit more robust, or maybe it's just a display how it looked on the LG G Watch that basically
low res,
just took me back, and I was like, well, it's like first time around, so I'll give them that there. But
now, what about the voice interface, guys? I want to hear what your thoughts are on this, because I've had the Moto X for a while. Everyone knows, listeners are tired of hearing about how much I like touchless control in the Moto X, but the only thing that could make it better for me is if I didn't have to, if the phone, it already doesn't have to be in my hand. It can be across the room, and I can yell at it, and it wakes up, and I'm like, okay, Google Now, and I'm like, oh yeah, wake me up at 9. It's like, okay, cool. But now the only thing that can make that better is if I had a peripheral on my wrist where the phone didn't have to be anywhere near me, and I could just talk to my wrist and be like, hey, when's that next bus leaving? And just have it talk to me. So I think that could be very powerful, as long as people can restrain themselves from doing it in public every 2 seconds. Because
well, that's the thing, and that's what I was about to tell you. See, your advantage is, how many people do you know own a Moto X?
Oh God, like 1 if I tried it, like outside of Pocket Now, 1 maybe.
Okay. See, that's the problem. How many? The problem is, what if the Moto X were like an iPhone, where you go to any bar and the bar's just full of iPhones on the table,
right?
And you were like, okay, Google Now, and it wakes up everybody's phone.
That would be a neat trick to play, actually.
And so I know it's fun, but see, that's really the problem with touchless controls. I mean, it doesn't really identify your voice in particular and respond just to you. It can respond to anybody. And therefore, it's not that there's a privacy issue. I don't really mind that. But then it becomes less functional if you're in a subway in a noisy place or something, and it just becomes uncomfortable. And that's the reason why I like the wearable concept. Number one, and number two, I just love the fact that Google's speech recognition software is a million times better than Siri when it comes to just detecting everything and responding to you, and it's so natural. I don't know. I like what I see. I feel, again, my opinion is this is the smartest way to approach a smartwatch, using something like Google Now.
Yeah. Now, I think actually, and I phrased this improperly before, but
you're back on video.
Oh, great. Yeah, I keep on. Well, I phrased this improperly before, but I think the problem is not going to be adoption. It's not going to be people restraining themselves from talking to their watches. I think it's going to be selling people on the idea of talking to their watches, because I think people are very self-conscious and probably won't see that there's much of a return on looking like an idiot as they perceive it. And that's what we've seen from Google Glass. I anticipate a Google Glass type backlash if anyone starts talking on their, to their wrist.
What I think what hopefully has to happen is if you could name your device, or if you could select preset names from your device and
Yeah,
actually
like
call
That
that.
would be
sure. No,
that
no,
would
no,
be
no. And
smart.
that would be a technical solution, but I'm talking about the social problem. I really don't I think there's going to be a stigma about this, and I think that the people are not going to accept the voice interface part of this.
No, no, I think
It's
it's
like
fine though
committing.
because we've gone past the Bluetooth where you don't know who the guy is talking to. Then you turn around and you see this little stub in the right ear, and you understand it on the left side.
Yeah, but that's a good example because those headsets, I don't see them anymore because people like didn't like them. They didn't mesh well in society.
No, but I personally still do. I see a lot of people with headsets, different types, very small or even larger ones, but I still see people where I'm standing on one side and I can't see that they're on a Bluetooth headset. And they're talking, and I'm going, this person might be crazy because they're saying some funny stuff. And then I walk around, I'm going, oh, okay, they're on a Bluetooth headset. So I think we will get past those. I think as a society now, we're used to those kind of things, but it's as long as you make it cool enough. That's what we are into, at least in America anyways, that you have to make it cool enough because talking to Siri is accepted now. People know that an iPhone has Siri, so you're going
Sure.
to play with it because Siri does all these cool things. So if with naming your device, where you can at least have preset names that they know it can recognize, then that would, not, using my Nigerian name, where it would probably just say, I'm sorry, I don't understand who you are. But using that might actually help out along with voice recognition.
So you think that people are actually going to go for it? You think that people are going to be like, okay, well, I got used to Siri, and yeah, this talking on the watch thing is pretty handy, so I guess I'm going to do it. You think we are going to be a society of Dick Tracy's?
Yes, we will accept it. That's how we are. We accept it. I mean, if this technology works well, we will accept it. And Siri is no, I mean, started off great, but has tittered down the line, and people have accepted it. So as long as it works well, people will always definitely use it.
And I think it's a generational thing. I mean, all of us are part of Generation X, where we've come from times when computers were not as popular as they are now, up to the point where they're ubiquitous. But our kids, like for example, my son is constantly asking things to Siri, and just interacting with Siri. And for his friends, it is a common thing, where it looks awkward for us because we come from a time where it's just evolved through our generation. So I think it'll just get better as generations evolve.
I think we got to move on to Android L here, but that's a good point. It's an open question here. I think certainly that battery life issue has got to be saved. There are a couple interesting things that Google has done though in terms of new usability. You guys know how like the Pebble would wake up if you shook it violently, the backlight would come on. The Galaxy Gear was waiting for a raise and rotate command to do it. This device, you can, first of all, it does self-illuminate when you bring your arm up, but also if you do like a palm smack on it, it'll go to this like monochrome battery saving mode or something like that, or maybe it just turns off the backlight or dims the OLED in the case of the Galaxy Live. It's got some other cool stuff like that. I think the Galaxy Live has the same heart rate monitor as some of the Gear stuff. It's going to be interesting to see what goes on. But another friend of the show, Stefan Constantinescu, made a good point on Twitter yesterday where he was like, remember, everyone, this is what Android looked like in version 1. And he shows like the Android Sooner or whatever it was called. And, it would give this thing 2 generations before you judge it or buy it, I think was his sort of point. So definitely something to keep in mind. Then again, we didn't keep it in mind. We bought 2 of them. The Galaxy Live and G Watch are coming to our office. So, Jaime, if you want to crack at those, let me know.
You're come on, stop teasing me. That's rude. That's rude.
Well, you know what? Let me make up for it. Why don't you take us through everything that we learned about Android L, starting with the most interesting and stopping when we are bored.
Oh my God, there's just a lot of, yesterday when I was building the daily, I was like, okay, I'm just going to shamelessly call this the Google edition of the Pocket Now Daily because it was just packed, and specifically Android L. I mean, there is just so much about it. And it's funny, a lot of people could think that Android L is just the UI tweak, but it's really not. Material Design is actually Google's new user interface, and it starts with Android L. But Android L is, first of all, Material Design. The fact that we're changing from Dalvik to ART as a runtime, which will make the operating system much faster. We're talking about, obviously, aside from a new user interface, it's obviously the fact that Android L is the operating system for everything except Chromebooks right now, and I wonder when Chromebooks are going to reach that. So whether it's a wearable, whether it's whatever wearables, because they didn't specify smartwatches. It's like they're teasing other form factors, but it's like wearables, smartphones, tablets, TVs, vehicles. Everything is based on Android L. It's the same SDK. Developers can build, like Spotify, for example, they build Spotify for the smartphone, and there is an option to expand that to a wearable, and it's optional to the developer. And they can also expand that to the vehicle. They can expand that to the TV. So it comes as a choice to the developer. They're making developer tools that are much smarter. In the past, it was really cumbersome to build applications for Android. Now it's not, or at least that's what they're teasing. And so, again, it's really cool to see that Android has finally grown up both aesthetically and up to the point where things talk to each other a lot better. Hopefully, we will see that in tablet and Android applications as well for tablets.
Yeah, let's talk about the aesthetics there, because they were really discussing like the grid thing and the different layout rules and stuff. And for the last couple versions, of course, we've seen an increased focus on aesthetics from Google. But some of these changes are. None of them are crazy major. They're just minor kind of stuff. You have the notifications on the lock screen. You have the what else? The grid stuff I was talking about. This different changes, changes in layout across screen sizes that make that transition a little more elegant.
Well, the thing about Android is, like, iOS has had design standards.
Crazy earthquake, Jaime. You gotta watch that mic there.
Sorry about that. Like, for example, iOS has had design standards ever since iOS 2, when the App Store was launched. But in the case of Android, the design standards did not come in until Ice Cream Sandwich. And then it was still optional for developers to adopt these design standards or not. Apparently with Android L, it's not like if they're going to be forced, but these transitions are sort of like, I don't know, it'll depend on Google if they're going to force the standards, but obviously apparently what they're looking for is a more uniform UI, both in applications and in everything. And obviously the purpose for that is for their applications to be ported much easily to other form factors,
Sure.
So it'll really depend on if Google enforces these design guidelines like Apple does, which they do.
I'm sure Google will, because the aesthetics are so important to them these days. And I'm gonna let Etteh, go ahead. I actually muted you, by the way, Etteh, and I don't know what it is, but we can't correct that problem. I'm still getting noise as though your mic is rubbing against something. So if you can find out what the hell's going on with that, that would be awesome.
Okay, just give me a second. Keep talking.
Etteh, can you take yourself off mute? Because I muted you thinking it was you, but I falsely accused you, friend. I'm sorry.
And I think there's a problem.
There's always a problem. It's Google Hangouts, right? Oh.
Yeah, I lost my mic there for a second. Apologize.
Oh, welcome back, man.
Yes. What I was saying was that I think something a lot of people didn't realize with Android L and its new unified interfaces, that this is a response really to what its two major competitors are doing. Windows is unified. Apple has this continuity, and Android needs to also find its place within that market so that people know that you have the same continuity, especially when you look at tablets, for instance, with Android, where they've not really done much with that. And so this kind of helps that department there, where especially in the tablet market, most of the manufacturers just throw in a lot of skin and a lot of stuff to make that feel a little different from what you have. So sometimes that works out well. Like sometimes you have Sony doing a scan on it, which actually I think looks pretty good on a tablet, and then you've got Samsung's new TouchWiz, which we thought looked pretty good at CES, and now it doesn't. And you've had manufacturers come out like HTC and said, like, we're going to be adapting, we're going to be changing with the times. Don't worry, we're starting the clock now on our upgrade to Sense, so that it'll be ready for Android L. We're still waiting on some other manufacturers to get back to us on that. So people in the chat who are asking about that, sorry, we don't know yet. But just the stock version of Android, it's so nice to see this aesthetic improvement kind of progressing apace. But there wasn't a lot to scream about. This was very much, and Taylor made a point about this in an editorial, this was very much like the jump from iOS 7 to iOS 8. Do you agree, or Jaime, or do you think that that's oversimplifying the matter?
I don't think it's oversimplifying. It's just Uh, hold on. The thing is, I'm trying to follow your question. Can you repeat?
Yeah, the question was, do you think this is like the jump from iOS 7 to iOS 8?
From
In terms
iOS
of
6 to iOS 7, that's why I'm confused.
no, from 7 to 8, from 7 to what we just saw announced.
Right. Well, but the design guidelines are the same.
I don't know. Are you on drugs? What?
No, I think what he's referring to is that the announcement of Android L, does that feel like the same announcement from iOS 7 to 8? Forget the design, just the general announcement, everything else packaging together.
Okay, no, then no. I mean, this is like again, that's why I was asking you. Like iOS 6 to iOS 7, it was a complete change in design aesthetic, and that's really for me, Android L is a major change.
See,
Yeah,
I disagree. I think Android L is not a major change because Google has been teasing this. They took the card UI, they took a lot of those elements, and they've been updating applications constantly.
yeah. The
for the
Google
last
Plus
12
app
months.
was like our preview of the new Android.
So as an Android user, when I saw the announcement and I saw the UI, I wasn't impressed at first. I was like, okay, I'm be using this on various Google apps
Yeah, that's the
until I
thing,
saw
and
the whole
that's my
picture.
point. Like, it's not. This is not the massive reinvention that. First of all, it wasn't necessary. I'm not complaining. All I'm saying is that this isn't a massive reboot of Android's look and feel. Just like iOS 8 is not a massive reboot of iOS 7's look and feel.
Okay, the reason why I'm saying that is like, for example, when we moved from gingerbread to ice cream sandwich, we moved from very ugly icons to a lot of neon. It was like
It was awesome.
it was like adopting Tron, and I loved it.
Yeah,
I
it was
loved it.
great.
I mean,
I liked it a lot too.
I'm a big fan of Tron, and I love the change. And I remember watching the keynote, ice cream sandwich being announced, and I'm like, my God, this is gorgeous. This is great. And what you should expect right now is for that neon to go away with the change to material design. So that's the reason why I'm saying surely it still looks the same like iOS 7. Pretty much, I mean, if you would remove all the different iconography and everything, it's pretty much the same as iOS 6. It just uses a different style. And in the same way, that's what happened right now with L. That's what I think. You know, the neon is going away.
So the other stuff in L, as we sort of wrap it up, is there's battery performance is going to be optimized as part of Project Volta with a new app called Battery Historian, which will let you correlate battery discharge with what's happening on a device at any point in time, which is pretty awesome.
Thank God, finally.
I know, yeah. And Android was actually pretty good compared to some other OSs in showing you what was going on in the battery management screen, but I hated when stuff would get stuck in like my principal power drain was either like Android system or Android OS, and I'm like, what does that mean? I don't know.
Or Google Play services. Google Play service. I'm like, which one?
Yeah, and I'm like, I like hanging out at XDA, but I'm not going to go to those, like, dive those forums for 2 hours to find out what app is sucking my power. Just give me a new phone.
Now, let me ask you guys. I mean, haven't you, like, okay, I'm shamelessly going to admit that I have finally begun using KitKat in the past month or so.
Yeah.
Because it took a while for my devices to get it. And, I mean, I have noticed, like, significant battery improvements with KitKat already.
Sure.
So it's just a continuation.
Yeah, those are always increasing. Like, I mean, they're always optimizing your power consumption on these things. They don't always come out and say it, though, and I think assigning a cool name to it, Project Volta is a very cool name. It's a very, tongue-in-cheek name. It's like, okay, then we're going to call a little attention to this, and we're going to try to eliminate the stigma of the platform as a. Not that Android was ever known as like a battery-sucking platform, but it's been known to be the jankier platform when it comes to UI elements. But then they overcame that with KitKat, and then later Jelly Bean with Project Butter. I think they're going to try and do the same thing with power consumption now. There's personal unlocking. There's 5,000 APIs that were released for developers yesterday.
Yeah, I thought how much? Like 1,000 APIs?
No, 5,000.
5,000 APIs. That's crazy. I don't think I've ever heard of that amount of APIs. And I've never heard of in the thousands. I've heard in the hundreds, not in the thousands. That's just crazy.
Nuts, right?
Obviously, we don't get details on what these APIs will be able to do, but obviously this will give a better teeth for developers to build better applications. Obviously.
And then there's this thing we've been sort of touching on this whole time is this material design thing, which strikes me as as interesting. I mean, we had to go fully flat. We had everyone go flat because flat was the thing. We were tired of skeuomorphism. We decided we didn't want these jeweled 3D elements anymore. We wanted stuff to be digitally authentic. Pretty much everyone started going that direction. You have all these manufacturers doing these skins, which are all flattened and whatever. And then Android comes out and says, okay, yeah, we're going to pull back from that a little bit and install some shadows on some of these elements, give you a sense of depth, and make everything out of a material. If a material existed in the real world that changed its height based on what you were doing, that's how we're going to build this stuff, like some kind of paper, some morphing paper. And it's like, okay.
Okay, a lot of people would say that Apple went away from skeuomorphism with iOS 7, but they didn't.
Everyone right would say that. Everyone who's correct would say that. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, they still try to build, like, for example, that whole layer, that transparency. It mimics glass in a way, so you really can't go away from some level of skeuomorphism.
Of course, unless you're going to build a phone with a DOS prompt. Yeah, of course, that's correct. But
you
definitely made it flat, though.
I'm like dir/w. I just remember.
Yes.
That, I'm sorry. But it's there has to be a level. You know, the problem with and again, we go back to the same Generation X evolution that you and I and everybody that's our age is going through. We come from not using computers to using computers. So you and I, we've been that 20% of people that have decided to be geeks and that actually don't have a problem in understanding iconography when it doesn't look like an envelope and when it does. But, you know, you grab the average person. Like, for example, I tried to give my dad a Windows phone at some point, and, dude, he gave it back to me 2 days later. He did not understand half of what he was seeing.
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to generalize, though. I mean, I don't think you can generalize based on age group because then you have the opposite problem with kids who are like, you give like a 9-year-old a phone and it's got like a reel-to-reel icon for the voicemail. It's like, what's that? Because that kid's never seen tape before in his life, like a cassette or anything. So it's not
exactly. No, you're getting the point. But again, it's a generational issue. There will come a period where that will no longer be a problem. But right now, I feel that we will have to be dealing with some level of skeuomorphism going forward, at least for the next 5 years. That's my thought.
Yeah. Do you have a final thought on this before we move into hardware?
No, I definitely agree with Jaime there. I think that is the case. But just to go to his anecdotal evidence with Windows Phone, I found that to be mixed in general. Where my mom doesn't like Windows Phone, my older aunt does, and then my cousins are split halfway in between. So I think it's one of those things that at some point.
Yeah, we had. I was wondering if it was just on my end because I was loading a page there. Etteh, we lost you in the middle of a sentence there, man. We'll see if he's able to recover. We'll see if he comes back. It'll appear as though we are interrupting him, but we're going to move on to the Nexus 8 rumors. Does that sound good to you, Jaime?
Yeah, but you know the problem with these Nexus 8 rumors is we've heard Nexus 8, we've heard Nexus 9. A lot of us were underwhelmed with the fact that there wasn't any hardware announced. And yeah, it's still a debate. We still don't even know if this thing is going to come from HTC. Half the rumors say HTC. Then we get another 30% of rumors that say that it's ASUS again. So it's really hard to predict if and when this tablet would happen, particularly with what Joe revealed yesterday in the Hangout in our editorial roundtable, where I wasn't aware that there was no more stock for Nexus 7 tablets either.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that either. So you're saying that they're at sold out conditions in the
and so we've got that case where, okay, what is Google trying to sell? So the only reason why any company would say that they've run out of stock is because there are new products in the pipeline, but we have no event rumors, no event announced, no press invites, nothing. So it's not like, I mean, yeah, these products are big enough for them to have a separate event, and that's what's happened before.
Roger. It looks like from our chat, it looks like Etteh has to take care of something. Maybe, he's going to visit the Mountain View offices and tell them about their Hangouts product and how it can be improved. In the meantime, Jaime, why don't you and I just, see, this thing, the reason I would just want to touch on the Nexus 8, and I don't want to talk about it, because it could be the Nexus 9. I don't want to talk specifics because we have almost nothing going on here, but in terms of solid facts. But CNET is citing a person familiar with the device as confirming that despite the lack of a Nexus 8 at I/O, which was very disappointing for a lot of us who were really excited for a new mid-grade tablet or mid-range tablet or mid-size tablet, if I can speak properly, the Google is still moving forward with the project, and the tablet will eventually be launched. Though just when that might happen sounds like it could still be very much in the air with no ETA offered.
No, again, if you think about it, these products, they've gained so much popularity that they deserve a separate event. True, they do. The problem is when, particularly now, when. You know, that's the biggest issue. And, you know, it makes sense. I mean, Android L will not be launched until the fall. So why would you launch a new tablet today without Android L? I guess that's the point. Usually, Android has been showcased in these Nexus products, and if there is no finalized version of the operating system, what are you going to launch, you know?
Yeah, no, it's a solid point. I think, you know, I don't know. I think we get so wrapped up in these events. We look at these things and it's like, here we go. We're going to see everything that we want to see, and then when the time comes and we're missing out on some stuff, it's like, where was that? Why wasn't this really? You know, all that kind of stuff. So you have a good point. I mean, why launch a device with old software? Yes, it happens periodically, but why do it when you can avoid it? But I guess the eagerness here, at least from my camp, comes from the fact that the Nexus 10 has been like considered old for a while now, and it's been. Is it technically? It's still offered for sale, I think, isn't it?
It is, but it was technically future-proof. I mean, Android tablets have until this year been able to adopt the screen resolution of the Nexus 10, which has been in the market for how long, you know? So they kind of made that tablet future-proof in a way.
I see. I also have an explanation from Enobong. It looks like he lost power, which is unfortunate. I'm just going to make sure that he...
I thought only I dealt with that. I'm serious. It's 1:13. It's 1:19 p.m. here, and usually the power goes out here at 1:30. So I'm just crossing my fingers.
God. Well, then I think that's our cue to move on more quickly, wouldn't you say?
Sounds
All
good.
right.
Let's go.
So let's dump that stuff. The Google Cardboard is a DIY Oculus Rift. I kind of don't want to talk about this. The thing is, like, it's just a very simple thing that Google has revealed for reasons of sending a message about, you know, what can we do with it. It was developed in their 20% off time.
Dude, you know, when I was seeing that at the keynote, and I'm like, I cannot believe that Google is going to be giving developers a cardboard. You know, I thought it was like some sort of teaser for a tablet announcement, and they were just playing around. And no, everybody's getting a cardboard.
Actually, so did I. Yeah. When he like revealed it, when he pulled it out, I can't remember who it was who was presenting at that point. I was like, oh, sweet, the new tablet's in there, and whatever, it wasn't. But you know, I think it's cool that Google is saying something about doing more with less. I think it's cool that they've taken a project devised in the, yes, mandated, but still the spare time, and have put it up on stage. And I think it's cool that with a minimum of work and a few things you can get at Radio Shack, you can turn a cardboard rig with a smartphone in it into like a 3D thing. I think that's cool, because the Oculus Rift itself uses a smartphone display to do its work. So it's like,
exactly.
I don't know. I wouldn't. I wanted to build one. Like, actually, if everything you needed came in the box, or if you could build this out of spare cardboard, which I have a lot of on the roof of this sound booth, by the way, because I get shipments all the time, I would totally do it. I would do it as a video. It'd be fun. But don't have a Google Cardboard, so you know.
It would be cool, but you know, I'm still debating if this whole virtual reality concept is going to take off at some point. Like, you know. For example, what I really wanted to buy right now that I went to the States for a couple of days off was what's that controller's name? The MOG, M-O-G, or what's the name of it?
Oh,
Taylor has one.
Yeah. I think you are right about that brand name. Yes.
That I would buy. Now that I would buy. Like, for example, for me, it's the perfect thing in the middle between virtual reality and that what's that NVIDIA Shield thing that I will never buy. You know, for me, I would rather use my smartphone, have something that could probably charge the battery in a way, and just play games whenever I want to, but have it be an accessory. That I would pay for, and I wonder why more companies don't do this. Probably because it hasn't really taken off. Again, that's my usage scenario.
Right. Well, you know, I'm not sure. And, fortunately, this isn't going to be the last opportunity we have to talk about it. So let's kind of put that on the shelf until we can find someone on the team willing to give Google Cardboard a try. And I want to move into a segment here, now that we're done with the news, sort of, and that, unfortunately, we've lost Enobong. Jaime, this will make this thing go quicker, but this is a new segment called Tough Spot. I like this idea. This is a cool idea that I had based on a question that actually listeners are really good at sending us mail that's like that pits us in that pits us against bad circumstances, that puts us in scenarios where we have to make a choice between one unappealing thing or the other. And that's kind of what I want to do with this today. This is granted one of the more attractive unappealing situations, but here's what's happening. We have Android Wear smartphones that have been announced. And guys listening who've just joining us in the chat.
Android Wear smartphones.
Android Wear smartwatches, sorry. I did that on the Facebook post yesterday, too. People listening and just joining us in the chat, we are getting back to smartwatches for a second. We have 3 that are announced, but only 2 which are available for order right now, and we don't even have a release date on the Moto 360. The Moto 360 is, without question, the much more talked about device. It is, I think, the much more desired device, because both the LG G Watch and the Samsung Galaxy Live, or Gear Live, are more conventional. They're square, and they're not as bombastic. So Jaime, throw all that away. Assume that you have to buy one of these right now. You have to get either the G Watch or the Gear Live, and you have to spend the money on it. It's your money. Which one do you buy, and why?
Okay, so this is funny. I am actually in a tough spot. So, for example, why would I buy the G Watch? Because I can replace that bracelet. I mean, I finally found the stainless steel bracelet for my Pebble, and it just, I was going to buy a Pebble Steel, and then I looked at the thing, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to buy a Pebble Steel. This is perfect. I'll just stay with this until I can buy something with Android Wear or the iWatch or whatever. But so I would buy the G Watch simply because of that. But my biggest problem with the G Watch is, it looks so simplistic that it looks boring.
Yes, I'm with you on that. It is very, it pushes the bounds of minimalism to, beyond.
It is excessive minimalism up to the point of, man, I don't even think that the Casio data banks from back in the day look this bad. Seriously.
Well, no, it doesn't look bad. No, I would disagree with you. It doesn't look bad. It just looks bad. Boring. It looks dull.
It looks dull. The finish is dull. And probably my biggest disappointment was that the display looked terrible in that video. So I'm like, okay, do I really want to buy this just because I can replace the band with a metallic band? That's really the only reason why I'm geared towards the Samsung Gear Live. Number 1. 2, the Gear Live is more affordable. I'm wondering if that Gear Live has the heart rate sensor. Do you know that?
Yeah, it does. In fact, it does have a heart rate sensor, and I think most of the Samsung stuff will, because that's kind of their offering.
At $200, I would have no problem in buying the Gear Live as like my sporty fitness Google Android Wear product, and then buy the 360 later as my elegant piece.
All right. So your answer is Gear Live, and your reason is aesthetics predominantly.
Aesthetics predominantly, but because I would still buy the 360.
Well, you're not allowed to do. No. All right, let's say the 360 is because we're going to talk about the 360 briefly here because we have a lot of questions in the Q&A on it. But no, I think the Samsung is a good choice for you, Jaime, because it has a heart rate sensor because you like to do that exercise thing that I know very little about, and it's got the bigger display that's an OLED display as well. So there's a chance it'll be a little more power efficient. That's me. That's just me speculating, but. Yeah, and you know what? Let me tell you something. I'm with you. I was
going to ask you, like, what is your case? I mean, what argument?
I'll tell you why. Exactly why. I think you are spot on in saying the G Watch is dull. I don't think it's ugly. I don't. In fact, I think the Gear Live, which is a hard name to remember, is maybe even uglier. But that's because it took a chance. It decided to be like. Or it didn't really take a chance, but it at least adhered to an established aesthetic that Samsung wanted to propagate, where it kind of looks like a first-gen Galaxy Gear that's been lengthened a little bit. But at least that says something. I think the G Watch just doesn't say anything to me. It's just a square wafer of semi-gloss plastic attached to a band that doesn't feel particularly good.
And you know what's funny? I mean, if you look at that G Watch, it looks exactly like the Sony smartwatch. But because
which I also never got excited about.
But wait a second. But because it lacks that circular, elegant button at the side, so that was like that small little element that gave, some, I'd call it stupid elegance or whatever, but it was a stupid thing that made it look good. At least that. But this watch, I mean, I would have, if they would have at least put the LG logo at the front or something. I don't know. Do something with that front, with that display. I mean, come on, it looks terrible.
No, I'm with you. I don't think it looks terrible though. I just think it's boring. That's all.
Well, boring and terrible. Fine.
Well, then you and I, where we put in this tough spot, we would each get the Gear Live. And you know what? I don't think we're going to be alone on that. I think, but then again, I want to get some. We're going to be talking about these devices a whole lot. Ours ship on the 8th, which, by the way, F you, all you people who got it to ship on the 3rd. I am jealous as F. Because I thought I was like smoking. I had my credit card number copied, pasted in my clipboard. I was ready. I kept refreshing the page when it went live yesterday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then, like, I get my order confirmation finally, and then there's people like, mine's shipping on the 3rd. I'm like, how is your shipping 5 days before mine?
Well, why don't we use our advantage and be like, okay, we have another smartphone giveaway for anybody that could trade an arrival date for the 3rd.
You can trade it up. Yeah, no, I agree. It's a good call. Anyone out there who gets your smartwatch earlier than us, send it our way. We'll make it worth your while.
Well, we will. I mean, listen, I guess my only concern with that Gear Live is that Samsung mentality where, TouchWiz forces only Samsung products to work with it. And, dude, I'm actually, the reason why I had a hard time.
It's not going to be that way.
Listen, I mean, Samsung is so unpredictable, man. I don't know. Until I have that thing with me, this was a Google event.
This was a Google event. This was Google saying, "Hey, here's our Halo products to showcase Android Wear." They're not going to let Samsung cripple that Gear Live.
I'll give you an example. To my understanding, the Gear products have, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have to my understanding, the Gear products even have a problem dealing with the Google Edition phones.
Well, yeah, because you have to get the software that manages them. You have to get through the Samsung store, not the Google Play Store.
Right.
Yeah. But that's right. But that's because they're built for Samsung products. These are not. These are Android Wear things that are built by vendors. These can be thought of as like Nexus smartwatches. So I don't think.
We'll see. So the point is, and this is a teaser. I'm working on the after the buzz of this HTC One M8.
Yeah.
And Michael, thank you very much for sending me this. I am not going back. I am not going back.
Not going back to
I have learned to survive with that 4-megapixel camera in a very elegant way.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the shots you take because you live in a beautiful country. Every time you take photos, I'm very envious. So, good on you.
Thank you.
Before we hop into listener mail, I want to get a couple of these Q&As out of the way. We were just talking about this. So the watch. There's a lot of questions about the 360. I just said it's the more desired, more buzzed about device. Certainly, there's a lot of questions about this. People are. First of all, this question's from Amin Bashir, and I can barely read that because the font is a little small. Sorry about that if I'm mispronouncing stuff. But he was on the fence. He's in that same tough spot between the G Watch or the Gear Live, but he wonders how soon is this summer? Do you think we'll see a Moto 360 release date next week, month, or a couple months? Here's the thing. That 360 has been, rumored, and then it was officially confirmed, but they've never set even a vague range of options for a release date. We haven't seen early summer, midsummer, late summer, any of that stuff. So I think Motorola's either having some trouble on the supply chain as far as that circular display goes, or something, or the materials used in the casing, because it looks very, very expensive.
I'll put it to you this way. Summer started 5 days ago. The solstice began 5 days ago, so there are 3 months in the summer. That's like the tough answer. The summer just begun.
Yeah. speaking of the weather, I'm getting a little more wind on your end there, Jaime. Watch that mic,
Dude,
if you
sorry,
would.
I have a window here. I have a window here because you made me turn off my air conditioner. Sorry.
I know. Well, I'm in a booth. I'm not even cooled right now. This next one is about the Moto 360 as well. Why isn't it a complete circle? There's a bezel on the bottom that completely gets on my nerves, says Jose Cesares. Jaime, did I get close?
I think you did. The thing is, it's not automatic. I can't see when you select
That's all right. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's all right. The question is a good one, and it's been talked about a lot today as all these hands-ons have landed, all these photos have landed. There is, in fact, it's like the bottom part of the display is chopped off, and there's a flat port. So if you took the display and stood it up on a table, just the display, it would stand up because the bottom of it is flattened. Why that is not fully understood to me, but some knowledgeable people were tweeting about it earlier, and it seems to have been a software limitation. I think Mobile Dom, our friend, was tweeting about it. When Motorola or when Google was designing Android Wear, there's almost no bezel around the rest of the display, but the software needed a bezel for reference or something like that.
Now, I'll tell you this much, Matt. Whenever you see the LG G Watch, anything is prettier than that.
Throwing shade.
Stop complaining. Stop complaining. And you know, I have such an amazing relationship with Michael Fisher, by the way, listeners and viewers, that I know this guy is going to send me the G Watch just to burn me. I know he's going to do this to me.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Oh, God. I was trying to find the tweet itself, but I could not. It looked like it was... Oh, yeah. The reason the little black notch is there at the bottom of the 360 is because it is essentially the bezel where the bezels would go. They wanted the screen to go edge to edge, so ergo the little black bar, a bit of a trade-off, but still awesome. I don't know what that means. So I guess...
You know, that thing looked gorgeous. It looked like if it worked perfectly on the display when it was showcased.
It doesn't bother me too. Does it bother you? I don't mind the little black strip at the bottom because it gives it makes the notifications when they come in, the little sideways banners, that it gives them something to line up with.
Come on, man. We've been putting up, and I can't say putting up. I mean, you see, there are Rolexes that are not perfect circles, and that's intentional. That's a design aesthetic.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, you don't like a Porsche because it's got a little hump at the back? Come on.
Right. Or like the chin back in the day when the HTC Hero was chin, or like the reverse chin on the Nexus S, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think it's just a question of of style. But if it gets on your nerves, definitely. I would still say probably try to invest in a Moto 360.
If it gets on your nerves,
can grow on you.
Just do yourself a favor, go to Disneyland and get yourself a Mickey Mouse watch. That is a perfect circle, and you will not have to deal with that problem.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Phil, we're not switching the camera actively. This Hangout is broken, just like every Hangout is always broken. So, sorry, we don't have camera control right now. What say we move into listener mail? What do you think, Jaime?
Unmuting and yes.
Excellent, excellent. Well, let's read some reader submissions. Folks, if you only watch us on Hangouts, you should know that emailed submissions come in at podcast@pocketnow.com. We read them every week on the air, or every week we have time, really. And we're going to kick things off with something from Big C, I believe. This is one of two questions that he sent in from Craig Green, a listener of ours. With there being so many smartphone accessories available these days, cases, headphones, Bluetooth speakers, smartwatches, the list goes on, I was wondering, what are some of your favorite smartphone accessories, and why? I like this question. We get favorite smartphones a lot, we get favorite tablets sometimes, but I've never gotten, I don't think, favorite accessories, or at least it's been a while. Hyman, does anything immediately leap to mind in your world?
Sleeves. I don't like cases, but because of how hot this country is, it is very common for you to sweat, your pants or whatever. And so I would always have trouble where I would pull my phone out from my pocket and it was like a little minor moisture on it, and just to avoid that, what I do is I always buy sleeves, like this. I always look for sleeves. That's like a basic that I always buy. That's one. And my second favorite would
Hold on. Before you move on again, I had a sleeve. My first ever sleeve came with I think it was the BlackBerry, one of the early BlackBerries, and then the next one came with the Palm Pre.
Yes,
they're cool.
And BlackBerry was what got me into sleeves, but it was mainly that magnetic thing where you pulled out the phone and it would turn the display on, and then you put it back and it would.
So cool, so smart. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, sorry, what was your next thing, Jaime?
My next thing would be Bluetooth headphones. Why, you know, a lot of people are audiophiles and they're like, no, I don't like the sound quality. For me, it's the convenience.
Okay, so what about, like, I mean, you must have a particular brand that you prefer of Bluetooth headphones. I'm sure you favor one over the other.
Plantronics or Plantronics.
Plantronics, yeah.
I think. Okay, so Jabra is my favorite. But the problem with Jabra is that I have a pair of Jabras that I use for running, and they're just amazing because those things, first of all, they look good, and second of all, they don't wobble around or anything. That's really what you're looking for. But the problem is the sound quality is not so good. So Plantronics for me is the company that does it best when it comes to audio quality on wireless.
All right. It looks like I'm texting, but I'm actually looking up the product name of my answer, which is which Google thinks is spelled wrong, so let me make sure it searches for the right thing, because I have two. It's a power bank, because I need power banks, dudes. Like, even though I carry two phones, I'll be out of the house for like 14 hours or something like that, and I'm just, I need to have juice for my phones, because I'm sort of always on them, which is, maybe expected. But there is something called the X-Torm, and you'd probably pronounce it just Storm. I can't find the actual brand. We've reviewed variations on it here, but it's XTORM, and it's a 10,000 milliamp hour battery, so it's like carrying around a car battery. I can go months with it with never recharging it. So that's one. It is big and heavy though, so you got to be the cargo pants for that.
I bought one, but sadly, unless you waited for me, it's in my room. It's a 10,000 milliamp hour battery, but it's smaller than this 1M8.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, no, mine has a smaller footprint too. It's just super thick. And then there's one from Zag as well, which you can plug
really
right into the wall.
It's really thin. It's aluminum. I'll send you the link. I forget the name of it, but for me, it's one of the best buys. It cost me $30.
This was a good one. Yeah, I like that. Well, my second one is also related to charging. Weirdly, I didn't put that together. It is the Tilt View, TYLT-VU, which is a Qi wireless charger for my Qi-enabled phones, which I don't have many of, but the ones I do, it's great. It's angled. It's you sit the thing on a desk and it looks just crazy spacey and futuristic and modern. And when you put your phone on it, it doesn't dance all over the place like it does on the Nokia charging plate. It's pretty awesome.
Caroline,
oh, by the way, that's a new feature. That's a new feature of Motorola Assist. When it knows that you are home, it'll read your text out loud if you want. So that's pretty awesome. Thanks, Moto X.
Lovely.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Thank you, Big C. That was awesome. Justin Eads has the next piece of listener mail, and what does it say? Multimedia consumption. This says, hey guys, first just want to thank you for all the content you put out. Thank you, Justin. My question is, when choosing a phone for multimedia consumption, what is more important to you? I know this answer is different from person to person, but figured this would be a good spot to get different opinions. By multimedia, I mean stuff like Netflix. Thanks again for all the help. Justin Eads from Chandler, Arizona. Jaime?
That's an easy one. God, front-firing speakers.
I knew you were going to hold up the M8. Absolutely. Yeah, let me lock the camera on you for a second.
So the reason why I would like the Note 3 the most is really not necessarily because of display size, but because of the battery. It's pointless for you to have all these great games and stuff if your battery dies in just a couple of minutes of play, and you still have to use the phone for phone calls and communications and everything. So for me, at first it was battery life, but when you have a phone that has good battery life, so now you have the battery life. Now what else? And it's like, what things that I hate the most about the Note 3 was the speakers. I mean, sure. You were forced to use headphones with that thing. It was
you weren't. I mean, it was loud around back, but you had to cup your hand because it was around back. So yeah, so for multimedia, you want front-firing speakers and you want a display that's pretty cool. Now, I will say that about the 1M8 display, it's good, but you know me, I like my deep blacks and high contrast, and OLED usually does a little better job of that for me. But I agree with you, Jaime. For me, the trade-off is not worth it on the audio sound because I don't always want to plug in the headphones. What do you want?
No, shoot, No, that's just the way it is. I mean, I'm spoiled by those speakers. And it's funny. So obviously I followed your reviews on the 1M8, and I've revisited them, right now for the After the Buzz. And I'm like, okay, so I have wireless, speakers, the accessories that I have. And okay, are the 1M8 speakers like as good as these? No, they're not. But they are a million times better than any other smartphone speaker in the market. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, in amplitude and in quality. And there are some speakers actually on some phones which are louder. They're just not better on the whole.
Oh, and like in the case of the iPhone, for example, they sound extremely loud, but they're not. They don't have the depth of the 1M8. That's just the way it is.
And I want to make the point that I have a second one, and this is just for me. You guys are all going to call me stupid and crazy, but my secondary phone for media consumption is the G Flex, which has probably the worst display ever in terms of like burn-in and image retention and refresh rate and all this stuff. But the simple fact that it's curved and the simple fact that I can rotate it and get that extra bit of immersiveness, which is not a word, is really cool, especially for gaming. So, yes, the speaker's around back. Yes, the screen is horrible in every other way, but just because it's basically the only option for a curved phone, a vertically curved phone, I have to mention it.
For me, I'm not gonna. Hey, that's you. In my case, I loved the LG G2 when it came out because there were no bezels in that display. It's like. It was extremely immersive. Okay, and you remember when you bought that Moto X with the white faceplate?
Yeah, with the white bezels.
Don't buy white bezels. I hate white bezels because
they're crazy. I know.
They're not immersive for content consumption.
Meanwhile, this Moto X looks great because it does not have a white faceplate.
Exactly.
I can't remember if I locked the camera on you because I'm looking at the next piece of mail, and I want to hit this. This is from Casey Dudek from Hillsboro, Oregon. Whose signature line reads, "Sent from my BlackBerry 10 smartphone." So you know what this one's going to be about. Yeah, I enjoy everyone's hard work and all the great content you all put out, including the new weekly. Thanks, Casey. Appreciate you sticking with us through our growing pains here. One thing all reviews seem to universally agree about is any screen resolution other than 16:9 is a bad thing. It is my contention this puts you out of step with the average consumer. Let's pretend for a moment they even know anything about different resolutions. The assumption that an image stretched to fit the screen is a bad thing is not always true. I like my text bigger, and my gaming needs are very simple. I think I'm in the majority here. I have more to say, but want to stay brief. Thank you for all your hard work, Casey Dudek. Casey, first of all, thank you for staying brief. I appreciate it. Folks, a little reminder, if you go beyond a paragraph, we just don't have the time to read it on air. Secondly, I get it. I understand what you're saying. I myself was just making a point about having a ridiculous opinion, or having a ridiculous preference, rather, that not a lot of people would agree with because most people look at the G Flex and they have a problem. I tend to like it. But I recognize that my attraction to that device is in the minority, and I really think that it's not a tech reviewer thing. I really think if you ask a normal person, you show a normal person a phone with a 16:9 display, you show them one with a 4:3 display, they're going to take the 16:9 one. Part of that is because most phones look like that, but most phones look like that because it's the only comfortable way to make a phone. Jaime, I don't know if you were on last week. I don't think you were, but this comes about probably because we were making fun of the BlackBerry Passport, which is the most ridiculous-looking thing I've ever seen in my life. And its aspect ratio on this. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's just be clear about this. LG they had this excessive stock of View phones. You remember when you did that Worst Gadgets Ever?
Yeah. The Intuition or the View.
The Optimus View. They had so many Optimus View phones out there that they called BlackBerry and were like, dude, we've got all this hardware here. You want to snap a keyboard on this and sell these? We've got all these housing plates here. You want them?
By the way, citation needed on all of this. Go ahead.
Oh my God! It's like God. It's ridiculous. It's not horrible. It's ridiculous.
It's nuts. And here's the thing. We already gave it a fair bit of grief last week. I don't want to do it again. We don't just hate on BlackBerry recreationally. It's just that when they do stuff like put out a thing like the Passport, it's like okay. Anyway, we'll take a look at it if we are invited to. We may not be invited to, but I would love to have a look at a review unit and see how it performs in the real world. But the point is, if you're talking about the display, I truly don't think that people like it when stuff scales, when stuff built for a stretch display scales to a square one. I don't think that people are speaking up and saying we really want our content to look like it's being displayed on a TV from 1998. Like, no, widescreen is in the majority for a good reason, I think. And I think that you were in the minority, Casey. And as I led off this entire answer with, that's not a problem. But I think you have to recognize when you are in the minority. But I tell you what, if you round up some more people, and people write in, once again, podcast@pocketnow.com. If you think that I'm wrong on this, I'd love to hear about it, because I'd like to hear from people who like this aspect ratio in particular. And Casey, you made a point that it's good for gaming too, but I still don't get that, because when I'm playing the few games that I play on mobile, the 3D games, like I like a wide screen, so I don't get where you're coming from, but I still like it.
I'll give you an example. In the case of, I don't know, you remember this movie, The Green Mile?
I surely remember The Green Mile.
Okay,
yes,
so
indeed.
if you watch the director's cut, the director will explain to you why he back then when 16:9 was optional, he filmed the movie in 16:9, and he was like, there is so much more information that I could provide you in 16:9 than in a 4:3 aspect ratio.
Sure.
I have to be panning and scamming and cutting portions of the movie, and then I have to film in a way to make sure that it fits in 4:3 and 16:9. So he's like, I can't wait for 16:9 to become a standard, because I can show you everything in one scene.
Right. Right.
It's the same with the game, the same with the video, the same with everything. 16:9, there's a purpose for that.
Enobong, welcome back. I understand you lost power.
Yes, I did. Still don't have power back, but I pulled up my Surface 3, and
Awesome.
I'm tethering, so I'm using my smartphone and my tablet to get things going.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Let me ask you a very important question. Did you happen to save your audio track before you?
I don't know, because it just went off. So my PC went off. So I'm hoping the autosave feature at least saved most of it.
Yeah.
But I have no idea. So basically, I'm on my tablet right now.
Cool. Well, welcome back, man. I'm glad you're here, and I'm afraid that you're here just in time for the end of the show. We're going to answer one more question from Daniel Gomez, and this is one that, Enobong, I'm sorry you can't help us answer, but I can answer it very quickly. Daniel Gomez writes, "Hey guys, love your work." Thank you. "I was wondering, what is the opening track to the podcast? I think it would be a great ringtone. Thanks, and as always, keep up the great work. Sincerely, Daniel from California." I love this question, because this is my favorite piece of stock music ever. I love our music. Jaime, do you agree?
Well, I chose it. Come on.
You chose it? I didn't know you chose it. I didn't know.
So ever since, for the longest time, we've been using the service, which I highly recommend, that builds music. And you have to pay for the subscription. You have to pay a lot of money for it, but
it's worth it.
It is really worth it. The name is IB Audio, and the guy is
IB Audio, ibaudio.com.
The guy is a genius. Surely once you pay for the subscription, again, it's expensive. Surely you have access to the same songs we use, but it's just to praise the guy. He's got the most amazing songs, and you remember, for example, when you remember the previous song that we had for the podcast, it was called D-Rock. Brandon was like, okay,
that one was like
that song was called D-Rock, and so I've actually chosen the songs for Pocket Now for the longest time, simply because Brandon ended up liking them. I was like, Go ahead.
We should answer the question before we forget to, because this particular track, is called Sequence.
It's called Sequence, yes.
We use it in the bumper for the videos. When you watch our videos and the Pocket Now thing comes on, the spinning P and the faces, it's a little chunk of Sequence. The outro reel is also Sequence, and then under the podcast, when you listen to it on the download, not when you see it here in the Hangout, it brings us in and it leads us out, and in between we have transistor tracks from another artist, that's Ali Spagnola. So yeah, but it's the coolest track ever. I completely agree with you, Jaime, and I'm so glad you chose it, and I never want to change it, by the way.
And the reason why we chose Sequence was because Brandon was like, okay, we need for the intro to be 3 seconds. And I'm like, 3 seconds? You're crazy. Why not 5? And he's like, no, it has to be 3 seconds. And the guy just insisted on 3 seconds. And so I chose 10 different songs. And out of those 10 different songs, I had to slice these songs in a way for them to enter and end in 3 seconds. And the only one that sounded good was Sequence.
We always...
and so it ended up being our intro and outro song, and I guess you liked it and used it for the podcast.
I do. I use it, and I use it as often as I can, too. It's really nice.
No, you guys have got me checking that out, so I might actually switch and start using them. I was just looking at the site and
Yeah.
some testimonials. So
Once
it's a question I appreciate.
audio.com. Yeah, good. I'm glad, because I was going to say, I'm sorry that you came back for some irrelevancy, but you didn't. You came back for the good stuff.
Now, I'll tell you this much, Michael. You were the one that chose our current song for reviews and for After the Buzzes, and I'm not going to name the song because it's just amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, for me that song is like when it breezes in, I'm like, okay, I'm going to cut the script here. I'm not going to throw in any word. I'm just going to leave the song coming in a leaving sequence coming into the song, and then I'll start talking.
Yeah.
And it's like,
It's
and
nice.
then it's funny because I record my script and then I segment the script, and it's funny every time that I change from one topic to the other, the song changes as well.
I know,
and
it's
I'm
nice.
like, damn, this is like the perfect song, Like,
I've taken to putting multiple tracks on my videos. Like I'll actually switch songs between sections, which is fun. Nobody's complained yet, so I guess it's good. Anyway, we don't have this is not a segment called Inside Baseball, by the way. We do have a segment called Inside Baseball where we talk about behind the scenes stuff. I think we have to wrap things up because even though you can't see it on my crappy camera, I'm developing a sweaty sheen on my face. And Enobong has to go find out why the hell the power is out at his house, and Jaime presumably has to go back to watching that football thing that the rest of the world cares about, and I don't.
I have to go cook lunch, dude.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good. Well, I have to see if we can get Enobong's other audio files. Point is, we have a lot to do. But before we go, I want to thank you, Enobong. Thank you for joining us today. I know it wasn't easy, particularly with a power failure, and particularly on your birthday. Happy birthday, man.
Thank you very much.
Happy birthday, dude. I will start celebrating with you very soon.
Yes.
You can visit, if you want to see where Enobong's creative juices go. I see him at all kinds of events. We are event friends, and he covers mobile technology right alongside Pocket Now. Please find him at BooredatWork.com. If you're listening, it's 2 O's, BooredatWork.com. Thanks again, Enobong.
My pleasure.
And Jaime, I believe that I have to let you get back to your news shift, my friend. And by the way, on Twitter, Greenpoint0 says he shares our love of sequence. Thank you. It's so freaking great. And Jaime, I want to thank you because you also saved butts today by coming on the air. We would not have had a podcast were it not for Jaime's willingness to drop everything to come on the air with us. So thank you. And by the way, Greenpoint0, I should mention, is Jules Wang, our freaking phenomenally talented video editor who did the last episode of After the Buzz for us. So Jules, thank you. Appreciate it. Jaime?
Yeah, and you're gonna owe me something. You know that.
I know it. I know, and I will pay up because you have saved the show today.
It's gonna be in the form of an unlock code for Windows Phone. You know that story.
Damn, I know that story. All right, let's get out of here, folks. I think I used it in our track. It's called our new giveaway will be announced Monday as the kickoff of our months of giveaways at Pocket Now. Don't forget that. Stay tuned. Enjoy your weekend. In the meantime, I want to let you know our transition track. That's not sequence. It's called Radiation. When we use it on the air, I say something like, you may recognize it as one of the ringtones on your Nexus 4, Nexus S, or Galaxy Nexus. It's also a full-length song by a real person called Ali Spagnola, who we've had here on the show. She's wonderful, and she also has millions of fans. So we've had a famous person on the Pocket Now Weekly, which I also like to say. Visit her YouTube channel at youtube.com/AliSpags and at alispagnola.com. They're both linked in the description below. Until next time, that is going to do it for this episode of the Pocket Now Weekly. Stay tuned for an installment next week. You know where to find Enobong, but if you want to find him on Twitter, he is at BooredatWork. Do you have a separate one, Etteh?
No. I use that as my
all
exactly.
Right. It's at BOORED at work, and Jaime is, of course, at Jaime_Rivera. Journey Dan was going to join us before from MobileSyrup. We'll get him on as soon as we can. He's at Journey Dan, and I am at Captain 2 Phones. It's Captain, the number 2 Phones. Follow Pocket Now on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Google+. And one more time, shoot us a review wherever reviews are left, and shoot us some mail at podcast@pocketnow.com. Thanks for watching and for listening, folks, and we will see you again next week.